Hey guys! On today's action figure showcase, we're going to take a look at my Chris Jericho collection. Without further ado, let's talk about some figures. Dude. I don't know what came over me. I couldn't start today's action figure showcase any other way than with Jericho's annoying "Hey guys, learning tree." What? Hello. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I threw myself off. Anyway, starting off today with the showcase, I promise I'm not gonna just make it a crap fest on Jericho. I haven't truly enjoyed what he's been doing in AEW for a while now, but I was so pumped about him initially in AEW. I was pretty big on his New Japan stuff he had been doing. I was a fan of him. I didn't like him a lot growing up. I thought he was like whiny and annoying, and then I got older and I started to appreciate his work, and then he grew on me, especially with the list stuff with Kevin Owens, and then I feel like he really peaked with the little bit of the bubbly stuff in AEW, and I can't honestly tell you that I've enjoyed Jericho since then. Like, he's had stuff here and there that I've thought was funny or whatever, but I haven't enjoyed Jericho like I used to. But I did really want to do this showcase because he's got a lot of really cool just looks and figures and stuff, and we've gotten a few offerings of him from Jazwares, and we've got plenty from Mattel too. So I thought it was worth taking a look at a bunch of his figures. So I wanted to start off here because Jazwares really is I like what they've given us for Jericho. The molds I think are awesome. The Corazon de Leon Jericho here, I think the head is a little cartoony. I wish there was some texture in, like, the hair. I think it looks good. I don't really have issues with it. The whole molded on tassels on the thigh is kind of weird, but the head sculpt just looks very cartoony with the glossiness to it, and then the hair is just very blonde, very big, and there's no like wash or dry brushing into it. So I think it'd look a lot better if I repainted just the hair, but it was cool. I thought that was neat, a neat addition to the line, even though I know nothing about Jericho in his Mexico days or New Japan really. But I always appreciate deep cut stuff like this of wrestlers when they first started out. And then the Lionheart Jericho I was excited for, but also I know that he kind of like wears this gimmick when he wrestles now, but they gave us modern Lionheart Jericho, and I would have preferred a younger look for him. But then with the head sculpt also feels more like a younger Jericho than modern Jericho. It was just a weird figure. I picked it up on Black Friday, I'm pretty sure, at a discounted price. But the biggest issue I have with the Jazwares Jerichos is just the size of them. I don't dislike the look in a vacuum, like by itself. Like, I think it looks good. The pants mold I like, the kick pads I like that the knee pads are big, and they look like, I think they look like Jericho on AEW television. They're just so large. I wish they were scaled down a little bit. You can even see the height difference between the Lionheart Jericho and the Corazon de Leon Jericho. It's just weird sizing, but you kind of get that with Jazwares. But I wanted to put these together since they're technically early Jericho, even though Lionheart Jericho is modern Jericho in his old gimmick. Next up, we've got some customs here. So the first one I'm going to talk about is going to be the WCW Jericho. And I didn't know a lot about Jericho in his WCW days until I got older. I only knew WWE, Y2J 2000 Jericho. And this one, I did have a different look of Jericho. So the head sculpt is from a Jakks WCW Jericho figure. The attire was just plain black and then had like a lion skull on it. and there really wasn't much to it, but I thought that was a cool Jericho when I picked it up back in the day. And then I kept that around for a long time and decided to make my own WCW Jericho. I've got the Threadhead custom shirt. Those decals were some of the first decals I had printed off of 3XR Studios library, so they weren't my best work printing off and doing. So I would like to, like, I'll revisit it one day, but it's not the worst thing, and I do really like that version of Jericho. And then the silver, like, kind of lightning there, Jericho is just one of the biggest nostalgia pieces of my childhood. Was one of the Chris Jerichos I had, and that was the attire I had. That's always the look I've thought of with Jericho, even if I don't know if it's even that memorable to anyone besides Jack's Titantron Live collectors, but for me, like, that was quintessential Jericho. The head sculpt there is from a Jack's R3 figure. I used an Austin torso. I think those were actual Jericho lowers with I painted the bottom of the boots. And I've gone back and forth on like what torso I like to use for him. If I went back and made a bunch of Jerichos from that time period, I'd probably use like the Arn Anderson torso. That's a little bit bigger, but not huge. But there's, I know Jericho is making bank in AEW, and it makes no sense for him to go back to WWE, but I really want him to go back so we can get a lot of figures of him in the Legends line. That's like my, I need to do a video of my like wish list for guys that would sign Legends contracts, and try not to just have it take up all guys that are in AEW, but those are a couple customs. I really like these Jerichos. Next up, we have the Defining Moments Jericho, and then we have the Best of Attitude. And I think did we get a re-release for the Best of Attitude? I could just be making that up. I thought that was a really, really cool one to get. The Best of Attitude era wave had like this Jericho, the Triple H, like everything else was Street Gear, I think. Triple H, and then The Rock, and then I think there was a Stone Cold in there. I think the Stone Cold was like the Stone Cold University figure. And then this Jericho was the only one that we got with ring attire. Yeah, I think I'm correct about that. And then the head sculpt here is from House 14. It was some of the first 3D sculpts I'd bought, and there was I had bought a big box of misprints, and this was in there. So I painted it up just to change things up a little bit, give them a different look, and I do want to do a brown wash in the hair. I think that'll make it look a lot better. But I thought that was a pretty good sculpt. And then the Defining Moments, I swapped that Daniel Bryan torso off and gave him the larger Austin torso because he was bigger at that point. He'd added some size, and even though Undisputed Champion Jericho he was Undisputed Champion, he was always a third wheel to the Stephanie Triple H stuff. But I thought it was really cool. Like, I didn't like Jericho back in the day when he won the Undisputed Championship. I remember being like, what the world, why did this just happen? How did he just beat The Rock and Stone Cold? But then him say, like, if you've seen the pay-per-view, you'll know that he didn't do a lot of the heavy lifting to actually win those matches. There's a ton of interference in all of them, and he like took a backseat through that whole phase of him being Undisputed Champion. But then I got older, and him using that as a shtick that he beat them both in one night, I just always thought was funny, and that's part of like how he ended up growing on me. But I thought it was cool that we got that actual attire. There's a lot I would have liked from that era, including his actual WrestleMania attire, but this was a start, and I thought we'd get more, and obviously things went the way they did. But really, really like this era and this look of Jericho. Next up is the ringside exclusive WrestleMania 19 Jericho, as well as my custom Money in the Bank, I think that was WrestleMania 21 Jericho. So these are both Jack's head sculpts, and I think if there's anything to say about what we've gotten for Jazwares and Mattel and Jack's, they've done a pretty good job with Jericho head sculpts. We've had a lot of different looks as far as his hair, his facial hair, and I feel like that for the most part they've all been pretty solid. These are obviously just very different looks. The WrestleMania 19 Jericho, like, especially being a huge Shawn Michaels fan, this was like peak hatred for Jericho. That is one of my favorite matches of all time. I feel like it as a kid, I felt like it had way more right than it should have. I didn't expect the match to be as awesome as it was and as long as it was, and I thought it was so good, and it just made me hate Jericho so much. And I was really excited when Ringside put this up as an exclusive. I'm really bummed we have not gotten the matching. Good Lord, can't talk. The matching Shawn Michaels with it. I have my own custom of it, but I really like. I mean, I was gonna say I'd really like a 2-pack with them, like an ultimate 2-pack or something. That'd be really cool, but that's obviously not gonna happen because Jericho's not with the company. I did swap off, so I all that about the head sculpts. I didn't think the Mattel sculpt was terrible, but I felt like the expression to it made Jericho look a little old. So I put the Jack sculpt on it. I felt like that captured his likeness a little bit more. Even though they're both the same era, they were both supposed to be for that version of Jericho. I thought Jack just did it a little bit better, so I swapped that on there. And then the Money in the Bank, we never got like this kind of mom haircut Jericho from Mattel, I don't believe. And I used a Macho Man for the legs on that one. And I needed Money in the Bank Jericho. I wanted to use this head sculpt because it was different than what we'd had, and it came out fine. It was one of the first few customs and decals I'd use. It had the Ghost White decals and stuff, so the paint application in my opinion, could have been a little bit better. I didn't use high quality paint, especially at that time. Didn't do any sanding, so it's a fine figure. I don't pose it around, move it a lot, because like I said, the paint on it's not great, but we'll circle back around to it down the road. Next up, we have some kind of like late Ruthless Aggression era, PG era Jericho. So I like Jericho left and came back quite a few times with WWE, and like I said, I wasn't a huge Jericho fan back in the day, so even when he did come back, I was like, oh cool, it's Jericho. It didn't really do much for me, but the way I had been watching, I had mostly missed his feud with Shawn Michaels, and he did some fantastic stuff with Shawn Michaels. It's arguably like the best just singular feud that he's had is the stuff he did with Shawn when he was a heel. But I missed that initially, and then his feud with CM Punk, I wasn't really watching then, so I kind of missed that as well. And I missed some prime Jericho stuff when it happened in real time. Going back and watching it, I was like, oh, this is awesome. I started to get the hype a little bit more with Chris Jericho. And then when he came back to the company, until he did the Kevin Owens stuff, like that was kind of his peak before he left for good at this point with AEW. But his Jericho stuff was pretty good. I know he was tag champs with Edge as well, which I think was before. I think like Edge got hurt and then he was with Big Show. So like he did some great work during that PG era that I kind of missed. So I did end up getting these figures after the fact. I think the heads are kind of swapped around. I do have the torso swapped on that purple Y2J. I think this was like Elite 20 or something like that. But all these are on ball joints. They don't move that great. So they're fine figures. I always felt like they made Jericho a little too tall, and I didn't think they made his legs and torso. The torso's okay, but I felt like the legs always should be a little bit shorter and squattier, and I kind of tried to go for that with the purple one. I swapped the kick pads. I can't even remember. Like I think I took that top part of the kick pads off. Excuse me. But anyway, those are just fine. They don't have the tattoos as well. I can't remember when he added those, but we never really got the Jericho tattoo. I don't think we ever did from Mattel. I look around, so we'll have to add that on a Work in Progress Wednesday, but we've got a couple more and then we'll get to Jazwares. Next up, this is the era, like I said, of Jericho that had started to kind of grow on me. we did, so he was doing a lot. I feel like his trunks here, you'd say GOAT on the back, and I never thought he was the GOAT, but I did start to appreciate his ability to change up his character just a little bit to keep it interesting. And at this time, like before he came back and was doing this stuff with Kevin Owens, he would come back for a little bit, have a run, put someone over and leave. And he did it with Ryback, He at WrestleMania 29, he wrestled Fandango in his debut match, which I just thought was so bizarre. And then eventually he came back and had his run with Kevin Owens and the Gray Elite. I don't remember what series it was. I picked this up off eBay for pretty cheap not that long ago. But then the other ones are from his time with Kevin Owens where he was doing the list. And I thought that was hysterical. Anytime he busted out that you just made the list, I thought it was great. It grew on me a lot. The Festival of Friendship, getting this figure was pretty cool. There's some more accessories, like I know there's a hat and stuff. But then the other, that yellowish, purple, pink, whatever color, whatever you want to call it, Jericho, that was the GameStop exclusive, I think. You just made the list Jericho, and it came with the list clipboard, which I also have somewhere. But it doesn't, I wish he had bigger hands. It doesn't hold in, it's a big clipboard, like it's really thick, so I didn't want to stretch out the hand. If I had swappable hands, I would throw it in there, but he was wearing his scarves as well. It was a great time, and I really enjoyed Jericho at that point. Yeah, I think that's about this. I think that about wraps up my Jericho peak fandom there. Now it's time to move on to Jazwares. Alright, so moving on to Jazwares. Like I said, to start things out, I'm not just going to crap on Jericho the whole showcase, because I do like Jericho and I appreciate his full body of work. I just feel like I feel like he really embraced the whole people calling him one of the best, calling him the GOAT, talking about how great he is at reinventing his character, and just started trying too hard. I did really like the whole little bit of the bubbly thing. I thought it was hilarious, and I'm pretty sure it like kind of went viral outside of just the little wrestling bubble, and I thought that was really cool. Like I said, I thought it was funny. I was really excited to get that bit of the bubbly figure, and then they gave us this skin tone, and it was the only time that we got this like smiling Jericho, and my head sculpt is it's misprinted. You know, I'll just repaint it at this point. Jazwares in general, when it first started out, was pretty rough for different reasons, and now that the standard, I feel like, has kind of been raised by Mattel, Jazwares hasn't risen to that occasion. Like I said, the Jazwares Jerichos, I feel like, look good by themselves. I like that he got a unique boot mold that is accurate. I do like that a lot. I just wish like they'd scale it down a little bit. I feel like he's just too tall. I said with Mattel, I wanted him to be a little bit more thick, which I've said before about Jazwares, that I like that they made their legs larger in mass, but not like scaled up bigger. I don't like that. So maybe one day Jazwares will either find that happy medium, or someone else will get the license. Who knows? But both of these here, I know the little bit of the bubbly Jericho came with a bunch of accessories. He came with like a table, a food spread, the champagne bottles, probably a microphone in there. But then I liked that smiling sculpt, but like I said, it was jacked up because it's that super pasty skin tone, because all the skin tones were messed up on that initial release, and then we never got a different version of that bubbly Jericho. And then the other one, I don't remember what set that was from, but I had that Inner Circle shirt. I have a bunch of Inner Circle shirts for the whole Inner Circle. So it's just a kind of a stand-in. We got that sculpt a few times. It wasn't anything special, but it was just, what I think happened was I had some extra Jericho pieces, and then I just pieced that together because I just had the pieces. After this, they did fix the skin tone, and it was much better. And I'm pretty excited about the rest of the Jazwares to talk about. So these Jerichos right here, I do have a lot of positive things to say. So the Jericho with the jacket and the scarf here was the actual, like, that first release of Jericho with the wrong skin tone. So I think I don't remember which series I had swapped onto it, which I did like the ease of the switching with torsos and everything. But I did really like that Jericho. The look, again, like, it is a little big, but it is what it is. That's Jazwares, and I did like that. I thought the head sculpt was really nice. The jacket was cool. The scarf, I liked that. But that was, I thought that they nailed it for an AEW champion early Jericho there. And then the other one is the torso is swapped onto that. So that was the Amazon exclusive, the like gear pack Jericho that had the 2 different jackets. It had I don't even remember what accessories were all in there, but I swapped some stuff around. So that one, I wanted to use that inner circle molded torso, so I put it on there just because the t-shirt wouldn't fit as well. And the sunglasses for him just fall off, so they're somewhere. But these sculpts I think are great. I think they're spot on for Jericho. I think the likeness looks good, and the application with the facial hair and everything looks really nice. And for as much flack as I give Jazwares, I felt like they did a great job. That gear pack Jericho was kind of plain, but it was cool getting a pack with just accessories and stuff to add to Jericho. I think there was an actual Jericho like figure in it, but these were solid. Like I said, I liked that. I think it was series, well, yeah, I think it was series 1 that he was in there, so that was cool. Them putting his tattoos on his arm was cool. I was very optimistic when we started up. Moving on. Then I decided to just squeeze all 3 of these in here to finish things up. I don't have a ton of Jerichos, and like I said, I want to add more to my collection, but 3 very different versions of Jericho here. So we've got Painmaker Jericho, we have Jerichohausen, and then Jericho as leader of the Jericho Appreciation Society, I'm pretty sure. So the Painmaker Jericho, again, is that same body as the Series 1 with like same attire for the legs, but then he came with a different jacket, and I think this is when he was doing that gimmick in AEW. I'm pretty sure he started that when he was going to wrestle Okada, because instead of the Rainmaker, he was the Painmaker. And I thought it, like, I didn't think like, oh, this is so cool. I feel like a lot of the Rock stuff that Jericho does, like, I know there's Fozzy fans out there, but I feel like Fozzy is bigger in his head than it actually is. It was cool that Judas had its time in the spotlight, and I thought it was a cool enough song. Like, I was kind of happy for Jericho, because I personally never really cared about Fozzy. But I thought that was cool, and I've always thought it was cool that he kind of brought that into his wrestling gimmick. But the whole Painmaker thing, I thought was a little more like cheesy than it was badass. But it didn't bother me. I enjoyed his New Japan stuff. So getting that in figure form, I was excited for, with the face paint there and just a different jacket. But then the Jericho Appreciation Society one, that was the Walmart exclusive, and that is the same head sculpt that we got on the Lionheart Jericho. And I like, after the inner circle, I thought that had some legs to it, and I feel like it didn't live up to the potential that I kind of had built in my mind. I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only one that feels like that, but I hated the Jericho Appreciation Society. I thought that I didn't think it had as much star power to it as the inner circle, and I just it did nothing for me. And since then, I haven't really cared a lot. I'm pretty sure that's when Jericho was doing his like wizard fireball thing, and things have not caught on for me personally with Jericho since the inner circle disbanded. But that Walmart exclusive figure, it's in purple, which is very different. I feel like in general don't get a lot of purple figures. It's a street gear, and I'm pretty sure they all had matching attires, but I'm in no way, shape, or form begging to get the rest of that moment. I don't even remember what it was from specifically. Probably a moment where they were all appreciating Jericho. But a lot of people hated this head sculpt, and I didn't think it was bad. I think it looks better with the goatee on it than without it. But still, it just I thought it was cool enough. I picked it up on. I might have picked it up from Wrestling Figure Epicenter. Or actually, I think I got it from Alex West. I think that's who I had picked it up from. He was selling it at a pretty decent price, but then it was worth picking up at that point. But then the Jericho Hausen was not selling. I haven't looked at it on Ringside since I got it, but I picked it up on Black Friday for like $6.99. No one wanted that figure. He wore this on the Jericho Cruise, which, as much as they involve, like as much as AEW wrestlers are involved in the indies, and how Jericho brings a little of himself to all the stuff he does in AEW, like the Jericho Cruise is just like non-canon. Like it's not talked about, it's not referenced on AEW, I'm pretty sure. It just is like a completely separate world. What happens there stays there. And I thought it was kind of weird that that Jazwares was giving us this figure, but Jazwares, like Jericho, probably thought, what can I do to sell myself and some merch? Oh, I'll just dress up as Danhausen, who's selling the most. So I think it's a cool figure. I liked all the accessories and the cape. The tights are obviously different, and then he's got the face paint, just like Danhausen. But I don't really care what happens on the Jericho Cruise. This was never referenced. It was what it was. I only picked it up because it dropped down so far, and it's a nice figure, but I wasn't the only one who just thought, like, why are we getting this? So you can probably still go ahead and get it on Ringside, or you can wait till next Black Friday, probably get few of them for $2.99 or $3.99. But those are going to be all the Jerichos. I want to get them all up on screen. You can kind of see that whole evolution of his character, which again is another exciting thing. I like being able to do that with the showcases. But let's wrap it up. And there we go. There is Chris Jericho. There's all of the Jerichos in my collection, and I would really like to revisit a bunch of these. Especially, I will probably end up finding a formula I like for a lot of the AEW Jerichos. I feel like, not a lot. The ones with the messed up skin tones, I think I'd like to completely do a little bit of the bubbly Jericho. I don't know if I'll do it on the Jazwares body or on Mattel body. Obviously, I do all my customs really on Elites or Ultimate Editions, but the Jericho customs that I do have in my collection are some of the first that I worked on when I really got into customizing. So I like to revisit all of those as well. I like the WCW Jericho, the Lightning Jericho. Like those were very early on when I started kind of getting into things, and I know I could execute them better. So those will probably find their way on Work in Progress Wednesday. I talked all of this stuff on Jericho's characters and gimmicks and stuff, as I have a Learning Tree Jericho and what is Big Cass's Big Bill, as those two sit on my shelf waiting to get worked on. So I can't help myself. If I have the pieces, I have the means, I can't help it. I have to make a custom of it. But that is going to be everything for today. So if you stuck around, I appreciate it. Please continue to like, share, subscribe, and remember, you can't buy happiness, but you can buy more action figures. Figure Dude